think it's business as usual for us. We usually do our film breakdown after our day off, which we did this morning at 8:30, and we'll pick out two or three things that maybe one or two that we were egregious in terms of our defensive breakdowns. Then we'll meet as a staff on that, watch film, whatever our teaching points are. We'll get that done today, early in practice. Then we'll work on us. We don't know who we'll play. I don't play the assumed game. Won't know who we'll play until Thursday night. So this gives us a chance to work on us.
Kelvin, you played both teams this season. Can you kind of give us an idea? Just two kind of totally different teams in terms of what they do. But
Yeah, East Carolina is their strengths are perimeter. Williams, Tyson, and Fleming. Those three guys can hurt you. You just have to be solid on the perimeter defensively. You know, they're a heavy pick and roll team, so our middle pick and roll defense, we call it our blue defense, our side pick and roll defense. And just being tight with that, making sure we're loading to the ball. That's really key against East Carolina. Central Florida has two elite players in B.J. Taylor and A.J. Davis. Davis really picked his game up. You know, they went to overtime with Wichita State maybe a week or 10 days ago, something like that. Davis had 31 in that. What jumped out to me was he was 6 for 9 from the three. I think the best pick and roll player in our league outside of Rob Gray is probably Jalen Adams from Connecticut. But the guy that's right there with those two guys is B.J. Taylor. He's an elite pick and roll player because he can play at three levels. He can make a three. He gets to the rim and finishes, and then he's really good in mid-range. So Davis, perimeter drives from the four spot. I think that's a difficult position to guard on the perimeter when you have a four-man that can bounce it. Then a point guard that can put the ball on the floor, create a pick and rolls. You know, we just have to be really solid in our principles.
Kelvin, could you talk about the joy that you felt on Sunday? You are an even-keeled guy. We know that, but just the joy that you felt completing that home season like you did and heading into the postseason.
Yeah, and I probably have to get better at this. You know, I don't enjoy senior day. I really don't. I don't. There's not one thing about it that I like on different levels. You know, I do get emotional on senior day. But you know, you can't let that affect you. I was fine when Nura and Karen walked out. You know, I've had Nura for 10 months or so. But when Wes walked out, you know, there's a reflection that goes on. All these kids have a backstory. But when Wes walked out with his parents, you know, you just think back to T.J. Ford's phone call and where our program was when he got here and where it is now and the impact that he's had. He's had a major, major impact on the success we've had because of his attitude on a daily basis, the effort he gives every day in practice. He's just been a shining star for us in almost every way. Rob Gray and Devin, the backstory on each of those young men. Obviously, Devin, what he's been through. Same with Rob and what they've achieved and how they've lifted the program. You know, they've been like a rising tide. You know, they've really lifted this program in so many different ways. So you go through that, then you want it over with, and then the game starts, and then you want to play well, and you want to play the right way. But you know, there was a long part in that game where we couldn't guard Connecticut, and that was concerning to me. But the joy that I felt was just happy for those kids' families. You know, families are heavily involved in recruiting. You know, Devin's mother and father, Rob's mother and father. You know, those were. You know, we went through a lot of ups and downs with them while they were here. So being able to see them to the finish line. But the thing I feel good about with those guys is that Nura has a degree, Rob has a degree, Devin has 3 classes he's taken to get his degree. Wes is finished, you know, but Wes and Rob will march and Wes and Devin will march and get their diplomas in May. So the fact that all 4 guys impacted us on the court and they're going to leave here with their degrees, I think that speaks to what's important and the core values we have in our program.
Armani was named 6th man of the year about an hour ago. Kelvin, just what he's done off the bench and kind of sometimes provided a lift.
Yeah, sometimes during the course of the year, as you're defining roles for players, I pulled Armani aside early and I said, look, Armani, especially when Wes started early. Wes started, I think Armani started the McNeese State game because that's when Rob went through his church deal. Then Armani popped up and had 22, 23, whatever it was that night, and played great, shot great. Armani doesn't always play great when he shoots good, but he popped up there and had a great night. And but I didn't want him to start, and I had to explain to him the importance of that role. There was going to be a critical role. Now, back in November, when I was talking to him about the role that I saw him playing on this team, little did I know that 4 months later, he was going to be the best player in this league in that role. But I think that goes back to this team's unselfish nature. This team really is selfless. Self can be ended in two syllables, with an ish or a less. You can be selfish or you can be selfless. This team is very selfless. When you run around on a team thinking about you, then you're not part of the team. Armani embodies everything that I want in a player in terms of his attitude. But he's an elite shooter, man. I don't have his stats in front of me, but I know he had 2 games where he made 7 threes. And I'm going to take a guess here that he had 7 or 8 where he had made at least 4, maybe, something like that. Not surprising. So happy for him, but I think Armani would be the first to tell you that that's a shared award. He's going to give a lot of, we have 2 players in the top 10 in the league in assists, Galen and Rob. And most of Armani's shots were off an assist. So Armani did a great job this year. Really, really happy for him.
Kelvin, how much can a conference tournament and the setup of it, especially if you keep winning and keep playing, help prepare you for the postseason, the conditioning? And
I just think the way it's set up, I remember all those years in the, even in the Pac-10 tournament, things change. For instance, you have a police escort. You got 8 or 9 motorcycles running around your bus with their lights flashing. You're zooming through traffic, going through stoplights. Kids are looking out the window. Well, that didn't happen when we were busing to the hotel in Greenville, North Carolina. It didn't happen. We got got on the bus, get out of the hotel, get on the bus, and wherever, Philadelphia or Connecticut, Dallas, it was just us. But now everything's shared. Everything changes, and I think it's you have to have a mature team. But when you go to the tournament, where everything's on a neutral court now. You got 20 minutes of shoot around the day before. There may or may not be a shoot around the day of. Everything's different, but I think this is where having a mature team, an older team, should help you.
What do you tell them? What kind of advice? You've been to so many postseason events.
Yeah,
You've been wanting to push this program.
Yeah.
You got them there. What do you tell them?
I think the number one thing is to control the controllable. I've always been big on that. The vision we have for this program in April of 14, we were right there our second year. We came down to the last month. We had some losses that we just weren't quite ready. But we were there that second year. The third year, we were there too. But this year, we kicked the door down. But now that the door's kicked down and we're in this position, most important thing is it starts with me. Don't change. Practice today is going to be no different than practice a month ago. Mainly because I don't know any other way. There's nothing going to change for us. Things around us will change. And that's where we have to really focus on us. Things as mundane as a motorcycle escort to a neutral court, one and done. There's a lot of things out there, but at the end of the day, there's a 94-foot slab of rectangular wood. It's got 2 goals and 1 ball with 10 guys. That don't change.
Kelvin, different coaches view these conference tournaments differently. Do you go there to try to win this?
Absolutely. You know, no matter where I've been in a conference tournament, the goal is to win today. You know, you don't go to win the tournament, you go to win today. You know, we have the game Friday night at 9 o'clock. If we lose that game, we're going to come home Saturday. I mean, that's reality. People says, well, be positive. I'm not interested in, you know, psychobabble. The thing that I focus on is this is reality. You know, if you've got to play good today. You know, if you play good today, you get to play tomorrow. If you play good tomorrow, you get to play the next day. But you better play good the first day, or there is no next day.
Yesterday on the conference call, some of the coaches were asked about going into conference tournament. If you're safely in the tournament, or a good chance you're in, that should seeding stay the same, and maybe what you do in 3 days or whatever, not.
You talking about seeding for the NCAA tournament?
Yeah.
I think the NCAA tournament helps you more. I'm sorry, the conference tournament can only help you. I don't think the conference tournament can hurt you. I think teams that are on the bubble can play themselves in, but I don't. If you're in the tournament, I don't think it's going to change anything, unless you're come out of nowhere, catch lightning in a bottle, win 4 games. I don't know how many teams do that. But you know, there's 3 teams in this league that I think are safely in. But you know, that's just a statement. You know, it's not being braggadocious. It's just reality. You know, I think we're in the tournament. You know, and I think our body of work in November and December, January, February. You know, we haven't lost 2 games in a row all year. You know, I think back to how good I thought Providence was. You know, when we were going back to the hotel after the Providence game, I told our coaches on the bus, that's a good team. You know, they're going to do good in their league. Arkansas, you know, we called Arkansas one of those nights. You know, we weren't that good and they weren't that bad. It's just one of those, you know, nights happen like that. I thought Arkansas was pretty good. Even St. Louis, I thought St. Louis was pretty good. And they wound up having a good year. I think they finished 500 in the Atlantic 10. That was a good road win. And then once we got to conference season, you know, once you get to conference season, there's a lot of questions that have been answered. You know, your team goes through a process of hoping, thinking, knowing. You hope you can win, then you start thinking you can win, then you know you can win. By the time we got to January, we knew we could win. But it was because of our schedule. We played a great non-conference schedule. You know, our non-conference schedule really prepared us for the conference, and that's why we set it up that way.
You had mentioned last week some of the guys were like reminiscing a lot. This is the last time we're going to do this. Has that stopped and now they're locked in?
Yeah, that's reminiscing. I told them, you know, bring your children back here in 20 years and reminisce. Let's slow down on that reminiscing stuff. You know, this is, you know, this ain't the last day of school. We're signing yearbooks. You know, go get tape and let's get to practice.
Anything else today, James Harden answered your question about how you talked about his program?
What's that now?
James Harden mentioned how unbelievable job he done here at U of H. Just your thoughts on it.
And he was at the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard about that. I didn't see, what was it, a press conference or?
It was
Oh, no, the media stuff after.
Question I asked.
Yeah, I've seen. I've been to a couple of those. I'm usually out there on the court working him out though, or trying to see if we can't get Dwight Howard to make a free throw.
Well, he said that you mentored him when he first got here, and he really appreciated it.
Yeah, no, James is. That's a relationship that I've appreciated. You know, you never know when James is going to call you. You know, he's. If my phone were to ring at 2 o'clock in the morning, I wouldn't worry about the police. It'd probably James. You know, wanting to. Hey, you guys playing tomorrow? You know, he'll just pick up the phone on his way home from somewhere and just, hey, you guys playing tomorrow? I said, yeah, I'm gonna bring my boys over. But he'll bring. This past fall, you know, he called me one night and said, I want to come over and work out tomorrow. I said, That's fine. And he shows up with it's James, Capella, Ariza, Chris. He had five Rockets with him. They were in the weight room working out. They had the strength coach from the Rockets. They had Chris had his guy, James had his guy, Capella had his guy. I don't think Ariza had his guy, but they all had their guys, and they came and played for 3 hours, just pickup. They played the Celtics. What night was that? The Celtics Saturday night. Okay, so Sunday morning my phone rings and it's James. Coach Kelvin want to come to the game. Okay, it's fine. Eric had called me earlier that week. Eric tries to come to a lot of games, but James is a last-minute guy. You know, he'll call, but you know, the one thing I always appreciate about James is winning. You know, you can say whatever you want to about him, but that guy is all about winning, and I think that's why I've always appreciated him. You know, coaching him was a pleasure for me, because you have to know how to coach James. You know, James is not one of those guys you run a mundane practice with. It better be a competition, it better be a loser and a winner. And I don't care what the drill is, it better be, because he's going to try to win it. If you just go out there for an hour wanting to work on pick and roll defense, that's not who he is. You can work on pick and roll defense, but it's the black team versus the red team versus the white team. First 1 to 3 wins on stops. That's how you coach James. Just figure out a competition, and he'll be the best player out there. But you know, we just have a good relationship. But you know, I coached Chris on the. I was the head coach for USA Junior National Team in 2004, and Chris was my starting point guard. And we won a gold medal when the USA wasn't winning a lot of gold medals. But we won that gold medal because of Chris Paul. I remember we played Puerto Rico in the gold medal game, and their point guard was Jose Juan Barea. And then they, Peter Juan Ramos, 7'2" kid that got drafted by the Wizards. That was their starting center. Ricky Sanchez, 6'11", 3-man. I had Chris Paul. I had a lot of good players, but we had Chris Paul, and that's why we won the gold medal.
Kelvin, you mentioned Eric. I mean, he's a guy that, you know, people are amazed at his all-around game. He's not just a shooter. You've known that for a long time.
Well, when I had Eric, he wasn't a shooter. He was a scorer. He's a closer. I always thought he was a guy that, in a space floor with any kind of angle pick and roll, not a traditional pick and roll, you have to slide the floor over for Eric because he gets downhill. He lives at the free throw line. Now, his game has evolved, which tells you a lot about his skill set. But he's gone from being a guy that lived at the free throw line and was a great finisher. You know, Eric was a man amongst boys when he was in college. When I had him as a freshman, but he was a man amongst boys. He didn't have a freshman body. He was 6'3", 6'4", 215 pounds, probably 3.5% body fat, and people just repelled off of him. When he drove to the basket, you know, any kind of contact, he